Buddhism has a warning that sounds almost cruel until life proves it true. What you are terrified to lose can eventually become your master. A relationship, a friendship, someone's approval, someone's attention. The more desperately you need it, the more power it gains over your decisions. Soon you start tolerating things the stronger version of you would never accept. Freedom begins when you can care deeply while still being willing to lose what costs you your peace. These 10 Buddhist lessons will teach you exactly how to reach that point, and once you do, people will never be able to make you small again. 1. Never beg for a place in someone's life. The moment you have to constantly convince someone to value you, something is already wrong. Healthy relationships should not make you beg for attention, love, respect, or basic care. Buddhism teaches that attachment can make us hold on to people even when staying close to them is hurting our peace. Sometimes you are not chasing the person because they are right for you. You are chasing the feeling of being wanted. When they give you attention, you feel important. When they become distant, you begin to question your worth. Slowly, your happiness starts depending on how they treat you. But your value does not increase when someone chooses you, and it does not disappear when someone leaves. If someone wants distance, let them have it. If they repeatedly ignore you, disrespect you, or make you feel unwanted, pay attention to their actions. Do not keep lowering your standards just because you are afraid of losing them. You can care about someone without begging them to stay. You can love someone without losing your dignity. There is strength in saying, "I care about you, but I will not beg you to care about me." Sometimes walking away does not mean you lost someone. It means you finally stopped losing yourself. 2. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Not everyone who misunderstands you actually wants to understand you. Sometimes you explain your intentions clearly, but the other person has already decided what they want to believe. The more you explain, the more exhausted and frustrated you become. Buddhism teaches us to stop trying to control other people's thoughts. You can control your words, your actions, and your intentions, but you cannot control how someone chooses to see you. Explain yourself once when necessary. Correct a misunderstanding if it matters. But do not spend hours defending your character to someone who keeps twisting your words or questioning your intentions. Your peace becomes stronger when you no longer need everyone to agree with you. Some people may think you are wrong. Some may judge you without knowing the full story. Let them. Their opinion does not change who you truly are. Instead of constantly proving yourself, focus on living with honesty and good intentions. Over time, your actions will speak more clearly than endless explanations ever could. You do not need to win every argument or correct every opinion about you. Sometimes, silence is not weakness, it is self-respect. Let people misunderstand you if they choose to. Protect your peace and keep moving forward. 3. Do not trade your boundaries for acceptance. One of the easiest ways to lower yourself is to keep saying yes when your heart is telling you no. You may agree to things you do not want, tolerate behavior that hurts you, or stay silent when someone crosses a line because you are afraid they will become upset, leave, or think badly of you. At first, it may seem like you are keeping the peace, but slowly, you begin losing your own peace instead. Buddhism teaches us the importance of awareness. You must become aware of the moments when fear is controlling your choices. Ask yourself why you are accepting something that makes you uncomfortable. Is it because it is truly the right thing to do, or because you are afraid of losing someone's approval? Many people lower their boundaries because they want to be liked. They become too available, forgive the same disrespect again and again, and allow others to speak to them in ways they would never accept from a stranger. They tell themselves, "I am just being kind," but kindness without boundaries can become self-neglect. Being compassionate does not mean allowing people to treat you badly. You can understand someone's pain without becoming the target of it. You can forgive someone and still decide not to trust them again. You can care about a person and still refuse to accept disrespect from them. A boundary is not punishment. It is simply a clear message about what you will and will not accept in your life. When someone crosses your boundary, you do not always need to argue or become angry. Sometimes a calm no is enough. Sometimes you need to step back. Sometimes you need to reduce how much access a person has to your time, energy, and personal life. The difficult part is that some people will not like your boundaries. They may call you selfish. They may say you have changed. They may try to make you feel guilty because you are no longer allowing the same behavior you once tolerated. Do not confuse their disappointment with proof that you are doing something wrong. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may naturally dislike the moment you begin creating them. Buddhist wisdom teaches us not to live completely controlled by praise or criticism. If you need everyone to approve of your decisions, you will eventually start abandoning yourself just to keep others comfortable. Your peace is too valuable for that. You should never have to become smaller, quieter, or easier to disrespect just to keep someone in your life. The right people may not always agree with your boundaries, but they will learn to respect them. Remember this: saying no does not make you cruel. Walking away from repeated disrespect does not make you heartless. Protecting your peace does not make you selfish. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop giving people unlimited access to you. Do not trade your dignity for acceptance. Do not sacrifice your peace just because you are afraid someone might leave. Anyone who requires you to lose yourself in order to keep them is asking for too much. 4. Never compete for someone's attention. One of the fastest ways to lose your self-respect is to keep competing for someone's attention. The moment you feel that you must become more interesting, more attractive, more available, or more useful just to make someone notice you, your peace begins to disappear. Instead of living your own life, you start watching theirs. You begin noticing who they talk to, who they spend time with, who they praise, and who seems more important to them. Without realizing it, you turn another person's attention into a prize. This creates suffering because now your happiness depends on winning. When they choose you, you feel important. When they choose someone else, you feel rejected. When they reply quickly, you feel secure. When they become distant, your mind starts creating painful stories. You may wonder, why are they treating someone else better than me? What does that person have that I do not have? What can I do to become more important? Buddhism teaches us to observe these thoughts instead of automatically believing them. The problem is not always that another person is giving attention somewhere else. The deeper problem is that you have started using their attention as a measurement of your own worth. That is a dangerous habit. Your value should not rise and fall depending on how much attention another person gives you. Sometimes people become so afraid of being replaced that they start lowering themselves. They become available at every moment. They answer immediately, even when the other person regularly ignores them. They cancel their own plans just to be free whenever that person calls. They tolerate disrespect because they are afraid that setting a boundary might push the person toward someone else. Little by little, they stop living with dignity and start performing for approval. But you were never meant to audition for a place in someone's life. You should not have to compete with another friend, another partner, another co-worker, or anyone else just to receive basic respect and consideration. Healthy relationships do not constantly make you feel as if you are fighting for your position. Of course, people have different responsibilities and relationships in their lives. Someone you care about will not always be available to you, and they do not have to give you all of their attention. Buddhism teaches us not to become possessive or demanding. The goal is not to expect someone to make you the center of their world. The lesson is different. It is about recognizing when you are constantly chasing someone who treats your presence as optional while expecting you to treat theirs as essential. There is a big difference between giving someone healthy space and constantly being made to feel unimportant. When you constantly compete for attention, comparison soon enters your mind. You start comparing your appearance, success, personality, money, intelligence, or lifestyle with other people. Instead of becoming better for yourself, you start changing because you want to defeat someone else in an invisible competition. This is exhausting. Buddhist teachings remind us that comparison keeps the mind restless because there will always be someone with something you do not have. Someone may be more attractive. Someone may have more money. Someone may be more popular. Someone may receive more praise. If your peace depends on being chosen over everyone else, you will never feel completely secure. There will always be another person to fear. Real confidence begins when you stop asking, "How can I become more important than them?" and start asking, "Why am I allowing someone else's attention to decide how I feel about myself?" That question can change your life. You do not need to prove that you are better than anyone. You do not need to make someone jealous. You do not need to post things just to get their attention. You do not need to disappear hoping they will chase you. You do not need to become colder, louder, or more impressive just to make someone notice your value. These are still forms of attachment because your behavior is being controlled by the reaction you hope to receive. Instead, return your attention to yourself. Spend time improving your own life. Build your health, your discipline, your knowledge, your peace, and your purpose. Give your energy to people who naturally appreciate your presence instead of spending it trying to convince someone who barely notices you. When you stop chasing attention, something powerful happens. You become calmer. You stop checking constantly to see who has messaged you. You stop becoming jealous every time someone gives attention to another person. You stop seeing every relationship as a competition. Most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself just to remain visible to someone else. Buddhism teaches non-attachment, and non-attachment does not mean that you stop loving people. It means that you stop trying to own their attention. You appreciate people when they are present, but you do not collapse when they are absent. You can care about someone without needing to be their first choice every second. You can love someone without monitoring who else they love. You can enjoy attention without becoming dependent on it. This creates emotional freedom. If someone genuinely values you, you will not have to constantly remind them that you exist. Their actions will show that your presence matters. And if someone repeatedly makes you feel invisible, do not exhaust yourself trying harder and harder to become visible. Step back. Not as punishment, not as a game, not because you want them to miss you. Step back because your attention is valuable too. Many people forget this. They become so focused on receiving attention that they never ask whether the other person deserves theirs. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your presence is valuable. Your care is valuable. Do not give all of it to someone who keeps making you compete for crumbs of attention. Sometimes the strongest response is to quietly remove yourself from the competition. Let other people chase approval if they choose to. Let them fight to be noticed. Let them compare themselves endlessly. You do not have to participate. There is something deeply peaceful about knowing that you do not need to be chosen by everyone. The right relationships will not require you to constantly prove your importance. And when you truly understand your own worth, you stop asking, "Why are they not choosing me?" You begin asking a much stronger question: why am I competing for something that should be given freely? Never lower yourself by fighting for someone's attention. If your presence is appreciated, stay with gratitude. If your presence is repeatedly ignored, step away with dignity. You do not need to defeat anyone else to prove your value. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to compete. 5. Believe patterns, not promises. Words can make you feel better for a moment, but patterns show you the truth. Someone can say, "I'm sorry." They can promise, "I'll change." They can tell you, "It will never happen again." And sometimes those words are sincere. People make mistakes, people learn, and people deserve the chance to improve. But when the same apology keeps coming after the same behavior, you have to stop listening only to the words and start paying attention to the pattern. Buddhism teaches us to see reality as it is, not only as we wish it would be. This is one of the hardest lessons because sometimes the truth is painful. You may love someone deeply and still have to admit that their behavior keeps hurting you. You may want to believe their promises because accepting the truth means making a difficult decision. That is why people often stay stuck. They do not stay because everything is good. They stay because they keep hoping the next promise will finally become different. A person hurts you, then apologizes. You forgive them. For a while, things improve. Then the same behavior returns. They apologize again. You forgive again. After enough time, the apology itself becomes part of the pattern. This is where you need awareness. Ask yourself a simple question: has anything truly changed? Do not only ask whether they sound sorry, ask whether their actions are different. A real apology should slowly create different behavior. If someone says they respect you, that respect should appear in the way they speak to you. If they say they care about your feelings, you should see more care in their actions. If they promise to stop doing something that hurts you, there should be real effort to stop. Nobody changes perfectly overnight. Growth takes time. People may still make mistakes, but there should be movement. There is a difference between someone struggling to change and someone repeatedly using promises to keep you from leaving. You must learn to recognize that difference. Sometimes people become very convincing when they fear losing access to you. They suddenly become kind. They start giving you the attention you had been asking for. They say everything you wanted to hear. They make big promises about the future. Then, once they feel secure that you are staying, the old behavior slowly returns. If this happens once, perhaps it is a mistake. If it happens again and again, it is information. Buddhism teaches mindful observation. Instead of reacting only to emotions, step back and observe the whole situation. Look at the last 6 months, not only the last 6 days. Look at what the person repeatedly does, not only what they say during emotional conversations. Patterns are often quiet. They reveal themselves through repetition. Maybe someone constantly disappears whenever you need them, but always returns when they need something. Maybe they disrespect you, apologize, then disrespect you again. Maybe they repeatedly break your trust and expect forgiveness without doing the work to rebuild it. Maybe they promise to communicate better but continue ignoring important conversations. Maybe they tell you that you matter while their actions repeatedly make you feel like an option. At some point, you have to stop asking for another explanation. The pattern has already explained everything. One reason people ignore patterns is attachment. You remember the good moments. You remember who the person was at the beginning. You remember their kindness, their promises, and the future you imagined together. Because of those memories, you keep waiting for that version of the person to return. But Buddhism reminds us that everything changes. Holding tightly to who someone used to be can prevent you from seeing who they are showing themselves to be now. You cannot build your life around someone's potential. You must respond to their present behavior. This does not mean becoming suspicious of everyone. It means becoming wiser about consistency. Trust should not be built on beautiful words alone. Trust is built when words and actions repeatedly match. If someone says they care about you and consistently shows care, believe them. If someone says they respect you and consistently treats you with respect, believe them. But if someone constantly tells you one thing and repeatedly shows you another, pay attention to what they show you. Actions usually reveal what words are trying to hide. This lesson also protects you from lowering yourself. When you ignore unhealthy patterns, you often begin changing your own behavior to keep the relationship alive. You become more patient than you should be. You keep forgiving without seeing improvement. You lower your expectations. You stop speaking up because you already know another argument will begin. Eventually, you may start accepting things you once promised yourself you would never accept. That is when you have to return to yourself. Compassion does not require endless tolerance. Buddhism teaches compassion, but compassion must be joined with wisdom. You can understand that someone has wounds, fears, or difficulties, and still recognize that their behavior is hurting you. Their pain may explain their actions, but it does not automatically make those actions acceptable. You are allowed to say, "I understand why you behave this way, but I cannot continue living inside this pattern." That is not cruelty. That is clarity. Forgiveness also does not mean giving unlimited chances. You can forgive someone in your heart while deciding that they no longer deserve the same access to your life. Forgiveness can free you from anger, but boundaries protect you from repeating the same suffering. These two things can exist together. You can release resentment and still walk away. You can wish someone well and still refuse to return. You can understand them and still choose yourself. Never confuse forgiveness with permission. This is especially important when someone repeatedly asks you to believe their future instead of looking at their past behavior. They may say, "Next time will be different." Perhaps it will. But you are not required to keep hurting yourself while waiting to find out. Let their actions prove the change. You do not have to gamble your peace on another promise. Real change is usually quiet. It does not need constant speeches. It becomes visible through consistent actions over time. The person becomes more responsible. They stop blaming everyone else. They respect your boundaries. They take accountability without making excuses. They correct their behavior, even when you are not threatening to leave. That is the kind of change you can trust. But when someone only changes long enough to stop you from walking away, be careful. Do not allow temporary improvement to erase a long pattern without evidence. Your heart may want to believe quickly, but wisdom watches patiently. Buddhist practice teaches us not to judge everything from one emotional moment. See the larger picture. One kind day does not erase months of disrespect. One apology does not automatically rebuild broken trust. One promise does not prove transformation. Time reveals what words cannot. And remember, this lesson is not only about other people. It is also about being honest with yourself. Look at your own patterns. How many times have you promised yourself that you would stop returning to the same painful situation? How many times have you said, "This is the last time," only to accept the same treatment again? Your own repeated choices matter too. If you want people to respect your boundaries, you have to respect them first. If you keep saying, "I will not accept this again," but continue accepting it, your words begin losing meaning to yourself. So become consistent. When you see a pattern clearly, respond to it. You do not need anger. You do not need revenge. You do not need a dramatic goodbye. You simply need the courage to accept what repeated behavior is telling you. Sometimes the hardest truth is also the truth that finally sets you free. You may realize that someone you wanted to trust is not ready to treat you properly. You may realize that the future they keep promising has never actually arrived. You may realize that you have spent too much time loving their words while suffering from their actions. Accepting this can hurt, but staying blind usually hurts longer. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows when we resist reality. Peace begins when we stop arguing with what is clearly happening. So listen to promises, but watch patterns. Accept apologies, but look for change. Give people room to grow, but do not give them endless permission to hurt you. And never lower yourself by repeatedly accepting behavior that keeps showing you the same painful truth. A person's words tell you what they want you to believe. Their patterns show you what you actually need to know. 6. Let rejection reveal direction. Rejection can make you feel small if you allow it to define you. Someone may leave you, ignore you, choose someone else, reject your idea, end a friendship, or decide they no longer want the same future with you. In that moment, the mind often asks the wrong question: what is wrong with me? Buddhism teaches us to look at rejection differently. Not every rejection is proof that you are not good enough. Sometimes rejection is simply redirection. Sometimes a closed door is protecting you from a path that was never meant to bring you peace. Sometimes losing a person is what finally creates space for you to find yourself again. The problem begins when you take someone else's decision and turn it into a judgment about your entire worth. One person does not choose you, so you start believing nobody will choose you. One relationship ends, so you start thinking you are difficult to love. One opportunity disappears, so you begin doubting your abilities. This is how a single painful moment becomes much bigger than it really is. Buddhism teaches us to observe suffering without adding unnecessary stories to it. The rejection itself may hurt, but the mind often adds another layer of pain. They left because I am not enough. They chose someone better. I will never find another person. My life is going in the wrong direction. These thoughts feel real when you are hurt, but they are not always true. Rejection means one thing did not work out. It does not mean your entire life has failed. Think about how many times people lower themselves after rejection. They start begging for another chance. They send long messages trying to change someone's mind. They promise to become different. They accept behavior they would normally never accept because they are desperate to be chosen again. This is where dignity can disappear. You may think, if I can just make them come back, I will feel better. But ask yourself something important. If you have to abandon your self-respect to make someone stay, what exactly are you getting back? Buddhism teaches non-attachment. This does not mean you should never feel sadness when someone leaves. It means you learn not to destroy yourself trying to hold on to what is already moving away. You can feel the pain and still let go. You can miss someone and still understand that chasing them is not the answer. You can be disappointed and still continue walking forward. Sometimes rejection is life, showing you where you should stop investing your energy. Maybe you kept trying to save a relationship where only you were doing the work. Maybe you kept trying to impress people who never truly valued you. Maybe you kept forcing yourself into a group, friendship, or situation where you always felt like an outsider. Then rejection came, and at first it felt cruel. But later, you may realize it was freeing you. What feels like loss today can become protection tomorrow. There are people who spend years trying to reopen doors that life has already closed. They keep thinking about what they could have done differently. They imagine another conversation. They replay old memories. They wait for the person to return. Meanwhile, their own life remains still. Do not let a closed door become the place where you spend the rest of your life standing. If someone has made their decision, respect it. More importantly, respect yourself enough to stop trying to force a different answer. This does not mean you cannot learn from rejection. Sometimes rejection shows you where you need to improve. Maybe you made mistakes. Maybe you were not ready. Maybe your behavior needs to change. Buddhism does not teach us to ignore our faults. It teaches awareness, and awareness includes seeing ourselves clearly. So learn the lesson. If you were wrong, admit it. If you need to grow, grow. If you need to apologize, apologize. But do not turn growth into begging. There is a difference between improving yourself because you have learned something and changing yourself because you are desperate for one person's approval. One builds strength, the other slowly destroys your identity. Rejection can also teach you where you have become too attached. If one person walking away completely destroys your sense of self, perhaps too much of your identity was placed in that relationship. If one person's opinion can make you believe you are worthless, perhaps you gave their opinion too much power. If one closed door makes you feel as if there are no other possibilities, perhaps you were holding on to one outcome too tightly. Buddhism teaches us that attachment creates fear. The more desperately you need something to happen exactly the way you want, the more afraid you become of losing it. Then when it disappears, you feel as though you have lost everything. But your life is larger than one person. Your future is larger than one rejection. There are experiences you have not had yet, people you have not met, places you have not seen, and versions of yourself you have not become. Do not judge the rest of your life from one painful chapter. Sometimes rejection is necessary because comfort would have kept you stuck. A relationship ending may force you to learn independence. A friendship ending may show you what real loyalty should look like. A rejected opportunity may push you toward a path you would never have considered. A person choosing someone else may teach you to stop competing for attention and begin choosing yourself. You may not understand the direction immediately. That is okay. You do not need to understand everything before you move forward. Buddhism teaches us to live with uncertainty without allowing uncertainty to control us. You can say, "I do not know why this happened, but I will not destroy myself because of it." That is strength. When rejection happens, give yourself permission to feel it. Do not pretend that you are unaffected. You are human. Sadness is natural. Disappointment is natural. Missing someone is natural. But do not build a home inside those emotions. Feel them, observe them, and allow them to pass. Everything changes. The pain you feel today will not always feel this strong. The person you think you cannot live without may one day become someone you remember without pain. The opportunity you thought was your only chance may one day look small compared to what came later. This is why Buddhism reminds us of impermanence. Nothing stays the same forever, including rejection. Do not turn a temporary wound into a permanent identity. You are not the person who was rejected. You are a person who experienced rejection and continued growing. There is a big difference, and when someone chooses to leave, do not immediately chase after them to prove your worth. Sometimes the most powerful response is acceptance. Not because you agree with everything, not because it does not hurt, but because you understand that forcing someone to stay cannot create genuine love, loyalty, or respect. Let them go. If they believe another path is better for them, allow them to take it. Your job is not to stand in front of the door begging them to reconsider. Your job is to keep walking toward your own life. Rejection becomes dangerous only when you use it as permission to lower yourself. Do not accept disrespect just because you want someone back. Do not compete with another person to prove you are better. Do not keep proving your value to someone who has already decided not to see it. And do not turn yourself into a smaller version of who you are just to fit inside someone else's preference. Someone can reject you and still be wrong for you. Someone can leave you and still be making room for something better. Someone can fail to see your value without changing your value at all. Remember that. A diamond does not become worthless because one person walks past it. Your worth does not disappear because one relationship ended. The deeper lesson is to stop asking rejection to return what it took from you. Take your confidence back yourself. Take your attention back. Take your energy back. Take your future back. Instead of asking, "Why did they reject me?" begin asking, "Where is life asking me to go now?" That question moves you forward. Maybe the answer is toward healing. Maybe it is toward better boundaries. Maybe it is toward stronger self-respect. Maybe it is toward a completely different life. You may not know yet. Keep moving anyway. Sometimes the path only becomes clear after you stop staring at the door that closed behind you. Never lower yourself because someone rejected you. Let rejection hurt if it needs to hurt, but do not let it humiliate you. Learn what you can, release what you cannot control, and trust that one person's decision does not decide your entire future. Sometimes rejection is not life saying, "You are not worthy." Sometimes it is life quietly saying, "Not here, keep going." 7. Do not shrink yourself to make others comfortable. One of the quietest ways people lower themselves is by becoming smaller, so other people can feel more comfortable. You may stop speaking confidently because someone says you are too much. You may hide your success because you do not want others to feel jealous. You may pretend to be less intelligent, less ambitious, less disciplined, or less independent, just so you can fit into a group that does not know how to accept the real you. At first, this may seem harmless. You tell yourself that you are simply keeping the peace. You avoid talking about your goals. You stop sharing your opinions. You laugh at things you do not find funny. You agree with people even when you do not truly agree. You make yourself easier to accept because you are afraid that being fully yourself will make people leave. But every time you do this, you lose a small piece of your confidence. Buddhism teaches us to live with awareness and truth. That includes being honest about who we are becoming. You are not supposed to remain the same person forever just because the people around you are comfortable with your old version. Growth changes you. As you become wiser, you may stop enjoying certain conversations. As you become more disciplined, you may spend less time with people who waste their days. As you become more peaceful, you may lose interest in gossip, drama, arguments, and unnecessary conflict. As you develop stronger boundaries, you may stop allowing people to speak to you however they want. Some people will notice these changes and support you. Others will resist them. They may say, "You have changed," and perhaps you have. Changing is not always a bad thing. The real question is, have you changed into someone healthier, calmer, wiser, and more self-respecting? If the answer is yes, then you do not need to apologize for your growth. Buddhism teaches impermanence. Everything changes. Seasons change. Bodies change. Relationships change. Thoughts change. Life itself is always moving. Why should you expect yourself to remain exactly the same? Sometimes the version of you that people miss was the version that had no boundaries. They miss the person who always said yes. They miss the person who answered every call. They miss the person who tolerated disrespect. They miss the person who was afraid to speak up. They miss the person who gave too much and asked for very little. So when you finally change, they may not celebrate it. Do not automatically assume this means you are doing something wrong. Sometimes people are not upset because you became worse. They are upset because you became harder to control. This is why self-awareness is important. You should always examine yourself honestly. Confidence can become arrogance. Boundaries can become emotional walls. Independence can become isolation. Buddhism encourages balance, so continue checking your intentions. But do not confuse healthy growth with selfishness simply because someone else is uncomfortable with it. You are allowed to become stronger. You are allowed to become more selective. You are allowed to protect your time. You are allowed to say no without writing a long explanation. You are allowed to stop participating in conversations that make you feel smaller. You are allowed to leave environments that constantly bring out the worst in you. None of this means you think you are better than other people. It means you are beginning to understand what kind of life you want to create. There is a big difference between humility and making yourself small. True humility means you do not need to prove that you are better than anyone. You can recognize your strengths without looking down on others. You can be successful without becoming arrogant. You can be confident without needing to dominate every room. Making yourself small is different. That happens when you hide your strengths because you are afraid they will make someone uncomfortable. You should never have to pretend that you are less capable just to protect someone else's ego. Imagine you work hard to improve your life. You become healthier, more disciplined, more confident, and more focused. Instead of being happy for you, someone constantly tries to pull you back into your old habits. They may make jokes about your discipline. They may criticize your goals. They may say you take life too seriously. They may remind you of who you used to be whenever you try to become someone better. This can be difficult because sometimes the people doing this are people you love. But love should not require you to sabotage your own growth. You can care about someone and still continue becoming better. You can respect their journey without allowing them to control yours. Buddhism teaches us that every person must walk their own path. You cannot force another person to grow with you, and they cannot demand that you stop growing because they are not ready to change. Sometimes growth creates distance. That does not always mean someone is bad. It may simply mean you are moving in different directions. The problem begins when you refuse to move forward because you are afraid of leaving someone behind. You slow yourself down. You stop taking opportunities. You hide your ambition. You remain in unhealthy habits because they make you feel connected to certain people. You begin sacrificing your future to protect your past. That is too high a price. Do not lower yourself to remain familiar to people who are uncomfortable with your growth. You are allowed to outgrow environments. You are allowed to outgrow conversations. You are allowed to outgrow habits. And yes, sometimes you are allowed to outgrow relationships. This does not mean you need to become cold or disrespectful. You can leave with gratitude. You can appreciate what someone once meant to you, while recognizing that the relationship no longer supports who you are becoming. Not every relationship is meant to remain the same forever. Some people enter your life for a season. Some teach you something important. Some walk beside you for years. And some slowly move in another direction. Buddhism teaches us not to cling too tightly to what is changing. When you cling to an old version of a relationship, you may start becoming an old version of yourself, just to keep it alive. That is when you need courage. Do not return to habits you worked hard to escape simply because someone misses the old you. Do not start gossiping again just because your old friends think your silence is boring. Do not abandon your discipline because other people feel uncomfortable with your progress. Do not hide your intelligence because someone becomes insecure when you speak confidently. Do not pretend you have no goals just because the people around you have stopped dreaming. Your life is your responsibility. That does not mean you should become obsessed with success or constantly chase achievement. Buddhism teaches that external success alone cannot create lasting peace. The deeper goal is inner growth. Become more patient, become more aware, become less reactive, become more compassionate, become more disciplined about where your attention goes. Become strong enough to walk away from situations that repeatedly disturb your mind. These changes may make you less available to certain people. That is okay. You cannot continue giving everyone unlimited access to you and still expect to protect your peace. Some people will call your boundaries distance. Some will call your silence arrogance. Some will call your independence selfishness. Let them have their interpretation. You do not need to argue with everyone who misunderstands your growth. Your job is to make sure your intentions remain clean. Ask yourself, am I becoming more peaceful or simply more proud? Am I setting boundaries because I respect myself or because I want to punish someone? Am I becoming independent or am I becoming afraid to trust anyone? These questions keep you balanced. Buddhism is not about building a bigger ego. It is about understanding the ego so it does not control your life. So grow without needing to prove your growth. Improve quietly. Become stronger without announcing how strong you are. Let your life speak. And do not make yourself smaller just so someone else can feel bigger. This is especially important when people use guilt to control you. They may say, "You think you are better than us now." Maybe you simply stopped accepting things you once accepted. They may say, "You never have time anymore." Maybe you finally started protecting your time. They may say, "You are not the same person." Maybe you are finally becoming the person you were supposed to become. Do not allow guilt to send you backward. You can still be kind. You can still help people. You can still remain humble. But kindness does not require self-destruction. You do not have to set yourself on fire just to make other people feel warm. There will also be moments when your confidence makes certain people uncomfortable simply because they are struggling with themselves. Do not attack them for that. Everyone has their own insecurities, but their insecurity is not a command for you to disappear. You can be compassionate without shrinking. You can celebrate your success without humiliating anyone. You can speak confidently without disrespecting others. You can stand tall without pushing anyone down. That is healthy strength. Remember, your growth will reveal a lot about the people around you. Some people will be inspired by it. Some will support you. Some will quietly distance themselves. And some will try to convince you to return to who you were. Pay attention. The people who truly care about you may challenge you when you are wrong, but they will not constantly ask you to become weaker so they can feel stronger. Real relationships make room for growth. They do not require you to stay broken so the relationship can survive. Never lower yourself to preserve a connection. If you have to hide your confidence, silence your dreams, ignore your boundaries, or become a smaller version of yourself just to keep someone close, that connection is costing you too much. Stand in your life calmly. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need everyone to grow with you. Keep improving, keep learning, keep protecting your peace. And remember this: becoming more of yourself is not something you should apologize for. You were not born to spend your life making yourself smaller so everyone else can remain comfortable. Grow with humility. Walk with compassion, but never shrink yourself again. 8. Stop chasing closure from people who hurt you. One of the most painful ways people lower themselves is by continuing to chase answers from someone who has already hurt them. The relationship may be over. The friendship may have changed. Someone may have betrayed your trust, disappeared without explanation, treated you badly, or left you with questions you never expected to carry. Yet instead of letting the situation end, your mind keeps reaching back toward it. You want one more conversation, one more explanation, one more honest answer. You think that if the person finally tells you why they did what they did, your mind will become peaceful. But sometimes, the person who created your confusion is not capable of giving you clarity. Buddhism teaches us that suffering often continues because we keep demanding that reality give us something it may never give. We want the past to explain itself perfectly. We want people to admit exactly how they hurt us. We want them to understand our pain, apologize sincerely, and give us an ending that finally makes everything make sense. But life does not always end chapters that neatly. Sometimes people leave without explaining themselves. Sometimes they lie. Sometimes they give you half an answer. Sometimes they refuse to take responsibility. Sometimes they apologize, but the apology does not remove the pain. And sometimes they simply do not understand themselves well enough to explain why they acted the way they did. If your healing depends on receiving the perfect answer from them, you may stay trapped for a very long time. This is why Buddhism teaches us to release our attachment to outcomes we cannot control. You cannot force another person to become honest. You cannot force someone to understand the damage they caused. You cannot make them feel regret. You cannot make them apologize correctly. And you cannot force them to give you the kind of closure your heart is asking for. What you can control is what you do next. Many people lose their dignity while searching for closure. They send one last message, then another one. They ask the same question in different ways. They explain how badly they were hurt, hoping the other person will finally understand. They keep reopening communication because they believe the next conversation will be different. But each new conversation often creates another wound. Instead of receiving clarity, they receive more confusion. Instead of receiving an apology, they receive excuses. Instead of receiving peace, they receive another reason to keep thinking about the person. At some point, you must ask yourself whether you are truly looking for closure or whether you are looking for another reason to stay connected. That can be difficult to admit. Sometimes, "I just need answers" really means "I am not ready to let them go." Sometimes, I need them to explain, means I still hope there is something they can say that will make everything return to the way it was. And sometimes asking for closure is simply another form of attachment. You may not want the relationship to continue exactly as it was, but you still want the person to remain emotionally connected to you through conversations, explanations, arguments, apologies, or memories. Buddhism teaches that attachment does not always look like love. Sometimes attachment looks like anger. Sometimes it looks like resentment. Sometimes it looks like constantly replaying what someone did. Sometimes it looks like imagining conversations that will probably never happen. You can say that you are finished with someone while still carrying them everywhere in your mind. That is not freedom. True freedom begins when their name can exist without controlling your emotions. It begins when you stop needing them to understand you before you move forward. Imagine someone treated you unfairly and then walked away. For weeks, you keep replaying the situation. While eating, you think about it. Before sleeping, you think about it. When you wake up, the memory returns. You imagine what you would say if you saw them again. Meanwhile, that person may be living their life without thinking about the situation nearly as much as you are. Who is carrying the burden now? You are. This is why chasing closure can become another form of suffering. You may think you are trying to solve the past, but really, you are allowing the past to continue controlling the present. Buddhism encourages us to return to the present moment. The past has already happened. You can learn from it, but you cannot enter it again and rewrite the ending. No amount of thinking can change what someone did. No amount of replaying the conversation can create a different result. At some point, thinking stops being useful reflection and becomes emotional repetition. You must learn to recognize that point. Ask yourself, is thinking about this helping me understand something new, or am I simply hurting myself with the same memory again? If there is nothing new to learn, allow yourself to put it down. This does not mean pretending the pain never happened. Buddhism does not ask you to ignore reality. If someone betrayed you, acknowledge that betrayal. If they disrespected you, acknowledge the disrespect. If you made mistakes too, acknowledge your part honestly. But once you have seen the truth clearly, you do not need to keep reopening the wound just to prove that it was real. Your pain does not need another person's agreement to become valid. This is important. Sometimes we desperately want the person who hurt us to say, "Yes, I hurt you. Yes, you were right. Yes, I treated you badly." Why? Because part of us believes their admission will confirm that our feelings were justified. But you do not need permission to recognize how something affected you. If a relationship repeatedly left you anxious, confused, disrespected, or emotionally exhausted, you are allowed to acknowledge that. Someone else can disagree with your experience, and your experience can still be real. They may say, "You are too sensitive." They may say, "It was not that serious." They may say, "You misunderstood me." Maybe there are things you misunderstood. Be willing to examine yourself honestly. But do not automatically abandon your own experience simply because the person who hurt you gives you a different version. Awareness means seeing clearly, including seeing your own emotions without allowing someone else to completely rewrite them for you. There are situations where a final conversation can help. Healthy people sometimes sit down, admit mistakes, apologize, and give each other understanding before moving forward. But closure becomes unhealthy when you have already asked for clarity many times and the person continues giving you confusion. You need to know when enough is enough. If someone has repeatedly avoided the conversation, their avoidance is information. If someone keeps changing their story, that is information. If they blame you every time you explain how their behavior affected you, that is information. If they refuse to take any responsibility, that is information. You may never get the sentence you are waiting for, but their behavior may already have answered your question. Sometimes their refusal to communicate is the closure. Sometimes the way they treated you is the closure. Sometimes the fact that you had to repeatedly ask them to care is the closure. Sometimes the fact that you feel more peaceful when they are absent is the closure. Not every answer needs to arrive through words. Pay attention to what the situation itself has taught you. Maybe it taught you that you ignored red flags because you were attached. Maybe it showed you that you were giving too much while receiving very little. Maybe it taught you that chemistry does not always mean compatibility. Maybe you learned that loving someone is not enough if trust, respect, and honesty are missing. Maybe you learned that you need stronger boundaries. These lessons are valuable. Do not let your obsession with receiving an explanation make you miss the wisdom the experience already gave you. Buddhism teaches us that painful experiences can become teachers when we stop only asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" That question changes the direction of your attention. Instead of staring at the person who hurt you, you begin looking at yourself with awareness. What did you tolerate for too long? What signs did you ignore? Where did you abandon your own needs? What boundary will you protect next time? What will you do differently in future relationships? These questions can actually help you heal. Asking, "Why did they do this?" may never have a complete answer. People behave from their own conditioning, fear, insecurity, selfishness, confusion, wounds, and habits. Sometimes even they do not fully understand why they do what they do. Do not make your peace depend on solving another person. You may never understand them completely. Understanding yourself is more important. Understand why you stayed. Understand why you kept hoping. Understand why their approval became so important. Understand what the experience revealed about your own attachment. This is where real growth begins. There is another reason people chase closure. They want the other person to regret losing them. You may imagine the day they finally realize your value. You imagine them returning, apologizing, and admitting they made a terrible mistake. This fantasy can feel comforting, but it still keeps your peace dependent on their reaction. What if they never regret it? What if they never return? What if they continue believing their decision was right? Will you remain unhappy forever? You cannot build your healing around someone else's future regret. Buddhism teaches us to let go of the need to control how other people experience the consequences of their choices. You do not need revenge. You do not need them to suffer. You do not need them to miss you. You do not need them to watch you become successful. You do not need to prove that they lost something valuable. The moment your growth becomes a performance designed to make someone regret leaving, they still have power over you. Grow because your life deserves growth. Heal because your mind deserves peace. Become stronger because you learned something. Do not become better just so someone from your past can look back and feel sorry. They are no longer the audience for your life. Sometimes healing means accepting that you may always have a few unanswered questions. That can be uncomfortable. The mind hates unfinished stories. It wants a clear beginning, middle, and ending. It wants every action explained. It wants everything to make sense. But maturity means becoming comfortable with some uncertainty. You can move forward without understanding every detail. You can say, "I may never fully understand why they did that, but I understand enough to know that I deserve something healthier." That is closure you can give yourself. You do not need every missing piece before you are allowed to move on. Imagine holding a broken cup and repeatedly asking why it fell. You can study the fall forever, but the cup remains broken. Eventually, you must decide whether you are going to spend your life examining broken pieces or begin clearing the floor. Your relationships can be similar. There comes a moment when understanding more is no longer helping. Then your task becomes releasing. Release does not happen in one dramatic moment. You may decide to move forward and still think about the person tomorrow. A memory may return unexpectedly. A song may remind you of them. A place may bring back an old feeling. That does not mean you have failed. Buddhist practice teaches patience with the mind. When the memory appears, observe it. Do not feed it more than necessary. You can simply notice, this memory is here again. Then return to what is happening now. Do this repeatedly, and the memory slowly loses its power. What you repeatedly feed grows. If every memory becomes an hour of thinking, analyzing, checking social media, rereading old messages, and imagining conversations, the attachment remains strong. If the memory appears and you gently return to your present life, the attachment weakens. Healing is often this ordinary. It is not always a powerful moment where you suddenly stop caring. Sometimes it is simply choosing not to check their profile today, choosing not to send the message, choosing not to reread the conversation, choosing not to ask a mutual friend what they are doing, choosing not to create another reason to enter their life. These small decisions slowly return your attention to you. Remember, attention is one of your most valuable resources. Wherever your attention goes, your emotional energy follows. If you spend every day thinking about someone who has already left, they are still receiving a large part of your life without even being present. Do not give the past that much power. Bring your attention back. Return to your health. Return to your work. Return to your family. Return to your goals. Return to your spiritual practice. Return to the simple parts of life that existed before this person and will continue after them. Your life did not end because one relationship ended. You still have mornings you have not seen, conversations you have not had, people you have not met, lessons you have not learned. Do not sacrifice all of that while waiting for someone from the past to finally explain themselves. There is also dignity in knowing when to stop speaking. You may have already explained how you feel. You may have already told them what hurt you. You may have already given them opportunities to respond honestly. If nothing changes, another paragraph probably will not create the respect that the previous 10 paragraphs could not create. Sometimes your final explanation should be no explanation at all. Silence can be an answer. Distance can be an answer. Moving forward can be an answer. Not because you are trying to punish them, but because you have finally realized that your peace cannot keep depending on a conversation that goes nowhere. Never confuse silence with weakness. Sometimes silence means you have understood enough. You no longer need to win the argument. You no longer need to make them agree. You no longer need to leave the situation as the person who was proven right. You simply need to leave with your mind intact. That is stronger than winning an argument. Buddhism also teaches compassion, and compassion can help you release anger without reopening the relationship. You can recognize that people often hurt others because they are confused, wounded, afraid, or unaware. This does not excuse harmful behavior. Understanding is not the same as permission. You can understand why someone became the way they are and still decide that you cannot keep them close. This is an important balance. Hatred keeps you attached too. If you wake up angry at someone every morning, they still occupy your mind. If you constantly imagine revenge, they are still controlling your attention. Your goal is not to move from love into hatred. Your goal is to move from attachment into freedom. Eventually, you want to reach the point where you can remember what happened without needing to return to it. You may not approve of what they did. You may never trust them again, but you no longer need to carry anger everywhere. That is peace. Forgiveness can sometimes be part of that peace, but forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened. Forgiveness does not mean giving someone another opportunity to hurt you. You can forgive and keep the door closed. You can release resentment and keep your boundary. You can wish someone well from very far away. This is especially important when people believe forgiveness automatically means reconciliation. It does not. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can say in your heart is, I no longer wish you harm, but I also no longer give you access to me. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. Closure also means accepting your own mistakes. Maybe you stayed too long. Maybe you ignored things you knew were wrong. Maybe you became reactive. Maybe you said things you regret. Do not spend the rest of your life punishing yourself for not knowing then what you know now. Learn, take responsibility, apologize where appropriate. Then allow yourself to grow beyond the mistake. Self-blame can become another attachment to the past. You keep thinking, I should have known. But wisdom often comes after experience. You know now because you lived through it. Use that wisdom. Do not waste it by repeating the same pattern. The best closure is sometimes changed behavior. You do not need to announce that you learned the lesson. Show it by living differently. Next time, notice disrespect earlier. Next time, speak clearly. Next time, do not ignore your intuition simply because you are afraid of being alone. Next time, pay attention to consistency. Next time, protect your boundaries before resentment grows. Then the painful experience becomes useful. It becomes part of your growth instead of simply becoming part of your pain. At some point, you have to decide that you have asked enough questions. You have replayed enough conversations. You have searched for enough explanations. The person may never give you what you wanted. Give yourself what you actually need. Give yourself permission to stop. Give yourself permission to move forward without their approval. Give yourself permission to close the chapter even if they never helped you close it. This is one of the deepest forms of self-respect. You stop standing outside someone else's door, asking them to return your peace. You realize your peace was never inside their house. It was always something you had to rebuild within yourself. So if someone hurt you and refuses to give you closure, do not chase them forever. Do not send another message simply because silence feels uncomfortable. Do not keep reopening communication just to receive another disappointing answer. Do not lower yourself by begging someone to explain why they did not value what you gave them. Sometimes their actions already explained enough. Accept the lesson, protect the boundary, release the anger slowly, return your attention to your own life. And remember, closure is not always something another person gives you. Sometimes closure is the moment you finally say to yourself, I understand enough. I have suffered enough. I have asked enough. This chapter is over. Then close it. Not because everything was explained, not because everything was fair, not because the pain suddenly disappeared. Close it because your future deserves more attention than your past. You do not need one more answer. You need your peace back. 9. Protect your inner peace more than your image. One of the biggest reasons people lower themselves is because they are too afraid of being misunderstood. They want everyone to see them as kind, good, loyal, respectful, and reasonable. So when someone speaks badly about them, judges them unfairly, or tells a false version of the story, they immediately feel the need to defend themselves. They explain, they argue, they send long messages, they try to correct every misunderstanding, they worry about what other people are thinking, and sometimes they destroy their own peace trying to protect their image. Buddhism teaches us that this is another form of attachment. You are attached to the way other people see you. You want to control their opinion of you. You want to make sure nobody thinks badly of you. You want every person to understand your intentions correctly. But this is impossible. No matter how carefully you live, someone will misunderstand you. No matter how kind you are, someone may still think you are selfish. No matter how honest you are, someone may still doubt you. No matter how peaceful you become, someone may still have a negative opinion of you. If your peace depends on everyone understanding you correctly, you will never truly be free. You will spend your life managing other people's thoughts. This is exhausting. Imagine someone tells a story about you that leaves out everything they did. They describe your reaction, but not what caused it. They tell people that you became distant, but they do not explain how many times they disrespected your boundaries. They say you suddenly stopped talking to them, but they do not mention the many conversations you already tried to have. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself. You want to tell everyone the full story. You want people to understand that you were not the bad person. You want to prove that your decision was justified. But ask yourself something important. How much peace are you willing to sacrifice just to control someone else's opinion? Buddhist wisdom teaches that we suffer when we cling too tightly to praise and fear criticism too much. Praise feels good, so we chase it. Criticism feels painful, so we run from it. Then other people begin controlling our behavior without even realizing it. When they approve of us, we feel good. When they criticize us, we feel terrible. When they praise our choices, we become confident. When they disagree, we begin doubting ourselves. That is emotional dependence. You are allowing the outside world to decide the condition of your inner world. The goal is not to stop caring completely about what anyone thinks. Feedback can be useful. Sometimes criticism teaches you something important. Sometimes another person sees a mistake that you cannot see. Buddhism encourages awareness, not stubbornness. So when someone criticizes you, pause and examine it honestly. Ask yourself, is there truth here? If there is truth, learn from it. If you behaved badly, admit it. If you hurt someone, apologize. If you made a poor decision, correct it. But once you have examined yourself honestly, you do not need to continue suffering simply because someone refuses to change their opinion of you. There is a difference between learning from criticism and becoming controlled by criticism. One helps you grow, the other makes you lose yourself. Sometimes people will dislike your boundaries because your boundaries limit what they can take from you. They may call you rude when you stop answering every request. They may call you selfish when you finally protect your time. They may say you have changed because you no longer tolerate the same behavior. They may call you cold because you stopped explaining yourself. This can be uncomfortable, especially if you spent years trying to be the person everyone liked. But protecting your peace sometimes means accepting that you will not look good in everyone's story. You may become the villain in someone's version simply because you stopped allowing them to treat you however they wanted. Let them tell their version. You do not need to chase every person who hears it. Your character is not built by one story. It is built by the way you consistently live. If you know you acted with honesty, if you know you tried to communicate, if you know you treated people with respect, then allow time to reveal what endless explanations cannot. There is strength in not reacting immediately. Many people believe that silence means guilt. It does not. Sometimes silence means you are tired of defending yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe. Sometimes silence means you have chosen peace over another argument. Sometimes silence means you know that explaining yourself again will not change anything. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. This is especially important in the age of constant communication. A message arrives and immediately changes your mood. Someone leaves a negative comment, and you think about it for hours. Someone posts something that feels directed at you, and suddenly you want to respond. Someone unfollows you, and you start wondering what you did wrong. Someone does not invite you somewhere, and you begin questioning your importance. Your mind becomes reactive to every small signal coming from the outside world. Buddhism teaches us to observe this reaction. Before you respond, notice what is happening inside you. What exactly are you trying to protect? Is it truth, or is it your ego? Sometimes we say, I need to defend myself, when what we really mean is, I cannot tolerate someone thinking badly of me. Those are different things. There are situations where you should speak. If someone is spreading harmful lies that affect your work, safety, family, or reputation in a serious way, it may be wise to respond clearly. But many situations do not require a battle. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every insult requires an answer. And not every person deserves access to your side of the story. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is allow people to believe what they want while you continue living correctly. This requires inner confidence. When you do not trust yourself, every outside opinion feels dangerous. You think, what if they are right? What if everyone believes them? What if people stop liking me? But when you know yourself clearly, you can listen without collapsing. You can say, maybe they see me that way. I will examine myself honestly, but I do not have to become what they say I am. That is emotional strength. Buddhism teaches that the self we try so hard to defend is always changing anyway. Today someone praises you. Tomorrow they may criticize you. Today someone sees you as wise. Tomorrow they may think you are foolish. Other people's opinions are unstable. If you build your identity on unstable opinions, your mind will become unstable too. One day you will feel powerful. The next day you will feel worthless. One compliment will lift you. One insult will destroy your mood. This is why inner peace must be rooted more deeply than public approval. Your peace should come from knowing that you are trying to live with awareness, compassion, honesty, and self-respect. It should come from your own values. When your values are clear, you do not need constant approval. You know what kind of person you want to be. You know what behavior you will accept. You know what behavior you will not accept. You know when you made a mistake. And you also know when you are being manipulated through guilt. This clarity protects you. People often lower themselves because they are afraid of looking selfish. So they overgive. They say yes when they want to say no. They stay in relationships they have outgrown. They keep helping people who never appreciate them. They allow others to use their time and energy. Why? Because they are afraid of hearing, "You have changed." But sometimes changing is exactly what you needed. Maybe you were too available. Maybe you had no boundaries. Maybe you believed being a good person meant never disappointing anyone. Then life taught you that people can take advantage of endless availability. Now you are learning balance. Some people will not like that balance because the old version of you was easier for them. You cannot control their reaction. Protect your peace anyway. Another way people sacrifice peace for image is through constantly trying to prove that they are happy. They want an ex-partner to see that they moved on. They want old friends to see that they are successful. They want people who doubted them to regret it. So they begin living partly for an audience. Every achievement becomes something to show. Every happy moment becomes something to display. Every improvement becomes a message to someone from the past. But if your success is still designed to create a reaction in someone else, are you truly free from them? Buddhism would ask you to look deeper. Why do you need them to see? Why do you need them to regret? Why do you need them to admit that they were wrong about you? Your life becomes much lighter when you no longer need to prove anything. Become successful because you want to build a meaningful life. Become peaceful because peace feels better than chaos. Become disciplined because discipline improves you. Heal because you deserve healing. Do not heal just to show someone what they lost. Do not turn your growth into revenge. That keeps the same person at the center of your life. True freedom is when you no longer care whether they are watching. This is also why revenge rarely creates lasting peace. When someone hurts you, the ego wants justice immediately. It wants them to feel embarrassed. It wants them to lose something. It wants them to experience the same pain they caused. You may imagine the moment when they finally regret everything. But Buddhism teaches that holding on to revenge keeps the connection alive. You may no longer speak to the person, but they still occupy your mind. You are still waiting for something from them. Before, you wanted love. Now, you want regret. Before, you wanted their attention. Now, you want their suffering. The attachment has changed form, but the attachment remains. Real peace is not making someone suffer. Real peace is reaching a point where their life no longer controls yours. You do not need to see them fail. You do not need to hear that they are unhappy. You do not need karma to arrive in front of you. You simply continue walking. That is freedom. Protecting your peace also means learning when to leave conversations. Some people are experts at pulling you into emotional reactions. They know exactly what to say. They criticize your character. They bring up old mistakes. They twist your words. They accuse you of things you did not mean. Before you know it, you are angry, explaining, defending, and saying things you later regret. This is why awareness is so important. Notice the moment the conversation stops being productive. You do not have to remain there. You can say, "I have explained myself. I am not continuing this conversation." Then step away. This may feel strange if you are used to proving yourself until the other person understands. But not every conversation reaches understanding. Sometimes continuing only creates more damage. You are allowed to protect your mind. You are allowed to leave the room. You are allowed to put the phone down. You are allowed to stop responding. This does not make you weak. Sometimes leaving an argument requires more discipline than winning one. Anyone can react. It takes awareness to remain calm when your ego wants to fight. Another important Buddhist lesson is that your reputation and your character are not exactly the same thing. Your reputation is what people think you are. Your character is what you actually practice. Reputation can change overnight. Character is built over time. A rumor can damage reputation. A misunderstanding can change someone's opinion. A lie can make people judge you. But none of these automatically change your character. If you know this, you stop spending your entire life protecting appearances. Instead, you focus on living in a way you can respect. This is much more stable. Ask yourself at the end of the day, did I act according to my values? Did I treat people fairly? Did I protect my boundaries without unnecessary cruelty? Did I speak honestly? Did I react from wisdom or from anger? These questions matter more than, did everybody like me today? Because everyone will never like you. Even the Buddha was criticized. Any person who speaks, teaches, leads, creates, changes, or simply lives differently will eventually be judged. The goal is not universal approval. The goal is a peaceful mind and a life built on clear values. This does not mean becoming arrogant and saying, "I do not care what anyone thinks." That statement can become another form of ego. Wisdom is more balanced. You listen when feedback may help you. You reflect honestly. You correct your mistakes. But you do not surrender your entire identity to other people's opinions. You remain teachable without becoming easily controlled. There is great strength in this balance. Think about how much energy you could recover if you stopped worrying about everyone else's perception. How many hours have you spent thinking about what someone meant? How many conversations have you replayed? How many times have you imagined what people might be saying about you? How many decisions have you avoided because you were afraid of judgment? That is a lot of mental energy. Bring it back. Your life needs that energy. Your goals need it. Your health needs it. Your family needs it. Your peace needs it. Do not spend your best energy trying to live inside another person's mind. You cannot control what happens there. Some people will misunderstand your silence. Some will misunderstand your kindness. Some will misunderstand your confidence. Some will misunderstand your boundaries. Some may even misunderstand your healing. Let them. You cannot spend your life writing explanations for every person who develops an opinion about you. Sometimes you must allow misunderstanding to exist. This does not mean misunderstanding feels good. It can hurt, especially when it comes from people you once trusted. But pain and action are different things. You can feel hurt without reacting. You can feel disappointed without defending yourself immediately. You can feel angry without turning anger into destructive behavior. This is where Buddhist mindfulness becomes practical. When the emotion appears, do not become the emotion. Notice it. There is anger. There is fear. There is a desire to defend myself. There is a desire to prove them wrong. By observing the emotion, you create space between the feeling and your response. That space is powerful. Inside that space, you can choose dignity. Without awareness, someone says something disrespectful and you immediately react. With awareness, you can pause. You can decide whether the situation deserves your response. Most importantly, you stop allowing other people to control your behavior so easily. Imagine how difficult you become to manipulate when insults cannot instantly control you. Someone calls you selfish, but you calmly examine whether it is true. If it is true, you improve. If it is not, you let the comment pass. Someone says you have changed. You ask whether your changes are healthy. If they are, you continue. Someone tells you that everyone is talking about you. You resist the urge to chase everyone and explain yourself. You keep living. This is real emotional independence. Your peace no longer belongs to whoever has the strongest opinion about you. You also begin to understand that people usually judge from their own perspective. Two people can see the same action differently. One person sees your silence as maturity. Another sees it as arrogance. One sees your boundaries as self-respect. Another sees them as selfishness. One admires your confidence. Another feels threatened by it. Which opinion is the complete truth? Often, none of them. They are interpretations. This is why you cannot build your life entirely around interpretation. Live from principles instead. Be kind because kindness matters to you. Be honest because honesty matters to you. Set boundaries because your peace matters. Walk away from disrespect because dignity matters. Do these things even when nobody applauds, especially when nobody applauds. That is when you know your values are real. It is easy to be peaceful when everyone supports you. The deeper practice is staying peaceful when someone misunderstands you. It is easy to feel confident when people praise you. The deeper practice is knowing your worth when praise disappears. It is easy to stand by your decision when everyone agrees. The deeper practice is standing calmly when you know your decision is right, but other people criticize it. That is inner strength. Never lower yourself just to repair an image inside someone else's mind. Do not beg people to believe you. Do not chase approval. Do not constantly defend your character. Let your consistent behavior speak. And understand that sometimes walking away quietly protects your dignity far more than winning the argument. There may come a day when someone tells a completely different story about you. They may describe the ending without describing everything that led to it. Your ego will want to correct them. Before you do, ask yourself, will responding create clarity, or will it only create more chaos? Is this important enough to disturb my peace? Am I protecting truth, or am I protecting my pride? These questions can save you from many unnecessary battles. Choose your battles carefully. Your attention is limited. Your emotional energy is limited. Your time is limited. Do not spend all three fighting people who have already made up their minds. Sometimes you have to become comfortable with being the wrong person in someone else's story. You know what happened. You know what you tried. You know where you failed. You know where they failed. Take responsibility for your part. Learn the lesson and continue. You do not need to carry the entire story into your future. Buddhism teaches release. Release the need to be praised. Release the fear of criticism. Release the need to appear perfect. Release the need to control every opinion. These things are heavy. Put them down. You are not here to become perfect in everyone's eyes. You are here to become more awake in your own life. And sometimes awakening means realizing how much suffering you have created by trying to manage an image. Someone likes you today and dislikes you tomorrow. Someone praises you today and forgets you next year. Someone misunderstands you today and may understand later. Everything changes. So why sacrifice permanent peace for temporary opinions? Your inner world deserves better. Protect it. Do not allow one person's criticism to occupy your entire day. Do not allow one misunderstanding to make you question everything about yourself. Do not allow a rumor to turn you into someone obsessed with proving their innocence to everyone. And do not lower yourself by begging people to see you differently. If you made a mistake, correct it. If you owe an apology, give it. If you need to change, change. But if you have already done what is right, allow yourself to move forward. Some people may never understand. That is okay. Your peace does not need unanimous approval. The deepest confidence is quiet. It does not need to shout, "I know who I am." It simply lives that truth. So protect your inner peace more than your image. Let people talk when talking is all they have. Let people misunderstand what they are determined to misunderstand. Let people leave if your boundaries make them uncomfortable. You do not need to follow them with explanations. Your life is too valuable to spend it constantly defending yourself. Live honestly. Stay humble. Learn when you are wrong. Stand firm when you are right. And remember this: being misunderstood for protecting your peace is better than being understood because you abandoned yourself. Never sacrifice your inner peace just to look good in someone else's eyes. Your reputation lives in other people's minds. Your peace lives inside you. Protect the one you actually have to live with. Never lowering yourself does not mean becoming proud, cold, or uncaring. Buddhism teaches something much deeper. It means learning how to love people without losing yourself, how to be kind without accepting disrespect, and how to walk away without carrying hatred in your heart. There will be people who misunderstand you, reject you, ignore your effort, test your boundaries, or make you feel as if you must prove your worth. In those moments, remember that your peace should never depend completely on another person's attention, approval, or decision. You do not need to beg anyone to stay. You do not need to compete for attention. You do not need to explain yourself endlessly. You do not need to become smaller just to make someone else comfortable. And you do not need revenge when walking away becomes necessary. Buddhism reminds us that everything changes. People come and go. Relationships begin and end. Opinions change. Feelings change. What matters is that through all of these changes, you remain connected to your own awareness, dignity, and inner peace. So treat people with compassion, but include yourself in that compassion too. Forgive when you can, but do not ignore the lesson. Love deeply, but do not abandon your boundaries. Let people choose their path and have enough courage to continue walking your own. The moment you stop begging to be valued, stop chasing what keeps running away, and stop sacrificing your peace for temporary acceptance, something powerful changes inside you. You become free. Never lower yourself again. Know your worth quietly, protect your peace wisely, and never lose yourself trying to keep someone else.